Welcome to my channel.
And this is English Podcast Station.
This is where we take your sources and really try to pull out the most interesting insights.
Mm-hmm.
And today we've got a whole stack of material, and it's all focused on, well, a pretty powerful topic, actually.
Right.
It's about how talking about your future dreams, your goals, how that can actually be a huge boost, especially, when you're learning English.
Yeah, it's built around material from sources like this educational podcast, English Podcast Station, with hosts James and Erica.
Exactly. And looking through their stuff, the podcast bits, the guides, notes, all that, what really jumps out.
Well, what immediately stands out is how they cleverly take something super personal like your own aspirations and turn it into a practical tool for language learning. I mean, it's a really fascinating teaching approach, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So our mission here really is to unpack their key ideas, the definitions they use, the examples, the cultural side of things, and the whole motivational angle.
Yep.
We want to show you why using your own dreams, your own goals, is such an effective way to get better at English, according to these sources.
Okay.
So maybe let's start with a basic distinction they make right off the bat in the material.
Yeah, they draw a really clear line between a dream and a goal.
Okay.
So they present a dream as like typically bigger, maybe a bit fuzzy,
Right.
less defined, something large you really hope for way down the line.
Right, like the big aspirational picture, inspiring maybe. And how did they talk about a goal?
A goal is similar. It's still something you want, obviously. But the key difference they highlight is specificity. It's framed much more like a concrete plan, something you can actually do. Actionable, well-defined.
That makes total sense. So if we follow the examples we saw, a dream could be, say, I want to be a singer. Pretty broad, right?
Aspirational.
But then the goal connected to that would be something like, I want to take singing lessons every week. That's specific. A step you can actually take.
Precisely. And getting that distinction clear is like fundamental to how they structure their advice for language learners.
Right.
The sources really emphasize that James and Erica see this as a great way to practice English, just because it plugs right into your own motivation.
And that personal connection makes such a difference in learning anything, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
If you're talking about something you genuinely care about, you're just naturally more into it.
Yeah.
It gives you real reasons to practice speaking, learn words that actually matter to you, and use those common conversational bits.
It yanks English practice out of the, abstract textbook world and plants it firmly in your own life, your own future.
Yeah.
And to help learners actually do this, the sources show they introduce some really practical language tools.
Ah, yes, the useful phrases. I saw those. What are some of the main ones the material really pushes for talking about dreams and goals?
Well, the sources flag 3 everyday phrases in particular. I want to, I hope to, and I would like to.
Simple stuff.
Yeah, but powerful. And they actively encourage listeners, write these down, use them, maybe even write out your goals in English using them.
Simple, yeah, but so flexible, you can immediately use them for your own situation. Like, I want to get better at speaking English, or
I hope to find a job where I can use English.
Or, I would like to visit London one day. Things like that.
Exactly. And then building on those basic phrases, the sources get into the relationship between small goals and big dreams.
Okay.
And this framework seems really central to the motivational side of what the podcast does.
Right. Okay, so how do they break down the small goals versus big dreams thing? What's the connection?
So small goals are described as like the short-term steps, the little things you do regularly.
Yeah.
An example they give in the sources is something like, I want to study English for 1 hour every day.
Right. Manageable.
And big dreams, like we said, are the larger, longer-term things. The example they use is, I want to live in another country.
So the small goals are basically the rungs on the ladder leading up to that big dream.
That's exactly how the sources frame it. They explicitly say Small goals help us reach big dreams step by step.
Nice.
And here's where it gets really neat, I think. Material positions learning English itself as a goal within this very framework.
Okay. So learning English isn't just learning English. It's actually a small goal that helps you get to some bigger dream you have.
Exactly.
That totally reframes the effort, doesn't it? It makes learning English this powerful tool for reaching something really personal.
Which then raises a big question, right? How does this stuff actually work in real life?
Yeah, good point.
And the sources give us both personal stories and some broader cultural context on that.
Okay, tell us about the personal example they shared. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, so Erica, one of the hosts, apparently told a story about her friend Maria.
Okay.
And Maria's big dream was to become a nurse, to help people in a hospital.
Right. Big dream.
But the challenge was she didn't really speak much English at the start.
Okay. That sounds like a pretty major roadblock for that kind of dream.
It definitely could have been. But the sources show how she apparently broke it down. Small goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Learning English every day was one. Taking science classes. Practicing speaking with friends.
So step by step.
Exactly. And the material note, she's now working in a clinic. So it really illustrates how getting good at English was a vital small goal that directly fed into achieving her bigger life goal.
Wow, that's a great story. Really shows the small steps paying off.
Yeah.
And beyond just individual stories like Maria's, the sources also touch on like the cultural side of talking about aspirations.
Yes, they do. They point out that in, well, many cultures, it's actually pretty normal and comfortable for people to talk about their dreams,
Right.
especially, with friends or family. It's often just part of everyday conversation, sharing what you hope for.
And it's not always just casual chat, is it? There are more like formal situations too.
Exactly. The whole discussion of future dreams and goals pops up in professional settings too, in lots of cultures,
Yeah.
like job interviews, notably.
The classic interview question. Of course.
You know the one. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yep. Heard that a few times.
And the sources explain that the whole point of that question is to get at your goals for the near future. The interviewer wants to understand your plans, your ambitions.
Right.
So being able to talk about that clearly, especially in English, if that's needed for the job, becomes a really practical skill.
So practicing talking about your dreams just for language learning actually prepares you for talking about your real goals in a professional setting. That's a really neat connection.
Yeah, it is. And what's also interesting here is how the sources acknowledge that, aspirations aren't set in stone. They highlight a key message from the podcast. Dreams can change.
That feels really important because sometimes you can feel kind of locked into a dream you had years ago, even if it doesn't quite fit anymore, right?
Totally. And the material makes it pretty clear that changing your dream over time, that's okay. It's acceptable because, well, life changes, as they put it.
Yeah, it does.
And it's fine to choose new paths or find new things you aspire to.
And they use another personal story for this point too, don't they?
They do. James, the other host, shares his childhood dream. Apparently, he really, really wanted to be an astronaut.
An astronaut. Wow.
Yeah, loved space, stars, rockets, the whole deal. Even thought about working at NASA.
Okay, so what happened? What shifted that big dream?
Well, turns out he later discovered he was actually afraid of heights.
Oh. Well, that might be a slight issue for an astronaut.
Kind of a key requirement, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that realization led him to change his dream. And this story, as the sources present it, just perfectly backs up the idea that it's completely fine if your goals or your dreams shift as you go through life.
That's such a relatable message. It definitely takes some pressure off, I think. So finally, how does the source material show them, like, building confidence in the listener around all this?
Well, the sources really emphasize the direct encouragement from James and Erica.
How so?
They actively push listeners to engage. Like, think about your personal dream. Try actually saying it out loud using those phrases we talked about.
Right, that active practice. Saying it out loud must be key for making the language stick.
For sure. And they back it up with some really powerful affirmation. The sources quote them saying very clearly, directly to the listener, your dream is important and English can help you reach it.
Wow.
That kind of message, it's designed to build motivation, build that self-belief.
So they're directly tying the effort you're putting into learning English right now to something deeply meaningful, something achievable in your own future.
Exactly. They seem to conclude with these really empowering messages that you see throughout the sources we looked at. Things like, we believe in you. Keep going. Keep dreaming. Keep learning. It really frames the whole language journey as one that's like full of potential and support.
So, okay, it's way more than just teaching vocabulary lists or grammar rules then. It's about giving learners the language tools and the confidence to connect English directly to their biggest hopes.
Yeah, it positions English learning as this concrete, achievable goal. A goal that directly helps you chase those larger life dreams. It makes the effort feel immediately relevant and really valuable.
Okay. So we've taken a deep dive into how thinking and talking about dreams and goals is presented in these sources, not just as some navel-gazing exercise, but as a, well, surprisingly effective way to practice English. We've looked at that difference between the big dreams and the smaller, actionable goals that lead up to them. And crucially, how learning English itself fits right into that picture as a vital step.
Yeah, as a tool.
We've heard those relatable stories like Maria's that really bring it to life. We've picked up some key phrases you can start using right away. And we've got a sense of the cultural context, like job interviews where these talks happen.
And importantly, that reminder that it's okay for dreams to change.
Absolutely. It's okay for them to evolve as we do.
Understanding this whole framework as it's laid out in the sources really seems to help learners see the immediate point and the long-term benefit of their English studies.
Definitely. So thinking about all this, here's maybe something for you, the listener, to chew on. If learning English is a goal that helps you unlock some of your bigger dreams, what's just one small thing, one tiny actionable step you could maybe take today, right now, that moves you just a little bit closer to both?